Hey y'all, good morning. My name is Tanmay Shah, and I am running for Cleveland City Council for the new Ward 12, which includes the neighborhoods of Edgewater, Coudell, and West Boulevard. And we are here this morning at Dahlia. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited. So, of course, I'm here with Tanmay Shah, candidate for Cleveland City Council, and we have some questions that we're going to go over. How will you form and lead a progressive reform caucus with fellow council members to drive a policy agenda?
That's a great question. Cleveland is facing big problems, and I have no illusion that I will be able to solve any of these individually.
Yeah.
Every work that I've done in my past that I've been proud of, that I can say we did something, has been together with other people.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do when I get into council. I bring a set of values that I believe are progressive values, that I want to advocate on behalf of the people. And I plan on doing that in council. That means working with others that have the same values, but at the end of the day, from my past as an organizer and a lawyer, people aren't static. That's why I do what I do, is that I believe everybody can be convinced. Yeah. And that's worthwhile. So for me, I'm definitely planning on having those hard conversations, understanding what's driving people to do the decisions that they're making and why they're doing things. Yeah. And trying to find that comfortable ground of like, how can we actually move forward to address these historic challenges that Cleveland is facing, from the lead issue to housing affordability to unaffordable groceries. These are all things in a crumbling, aging infrastructure. These are going to require council, all of us, all 15 people that get elected, to work together. So I'm really excited to do that. For me, it means acting from principle and building alliances that are stemming from principle, not personal gain.
Yeah, absolutely. Because those hard conversations are so important because working anywhere, there's going to be conflict. You're going to have to learn to agree to disagree. But I think what's progressive is that you're willing to agree to disagree and also deal with those hard conversations openly, especially as a public official and with a foundation of just direct honesty. So that's
Absolutely.
important.
And my background is as a socialist. I believe I draw my power from the people.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm upfront about with people when I meet them, is like, look, I'm not going to promise or tell you anything differently. Yeah. These are the principles that I'm working on. And for me, the theory of power for me is definitely that one that comes from the people. So I'm really excited to bring that to City Hall.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. Okay, so what are your top three priorities for the new Ward 12?
For me, as I mentioned just earlier, my top three priorities are housing, groceries, and reliable city services. These are fundamental things that people need to live in a city, and to live anywhere really. But for me, it's a huge part of what makes a city affordable. Housing is so critical. I'm a housing attorney by trade. That's what I did for a little over 2 years. I defended low-income tenants in housing court against landlords. And landlords are unfortunately just getting away with too many things that they shouldn't be. And as city council, we can change that. These are policy choices that we're making to allow out-of-state landlords, absentee landlords, to exploit our people, and it shouldn't be that way. So for me, housing is huge. If people can not afford to live in the city that they call home, where they work, then we're going to continue losing people. And for the first time in decades, we've actually had population growth for the last 2 years in Cleveland. This has been driven primarily by immigrants and refugees that have been resettled here. And for me, I want to keep building on that work. And a big part of that is actually having affordable and safe housing. So that's definitely my priority. And after that, it's reliable city services and affordable groceries. They go hand in hand. If we can't address these basic fundamental things, why are we talking about funding stadiums for billionaires?
How does money in politics influence governing decisions in your view?
It's a huge influence, right? We've seen this since Citizens United it was handed down. I mean, it's been happening for decades in this country, but money is what buys influence, because politicians need to get reelected, so they end up being beholden to the people that they fundraise from. For me, that's a big part of the reason why I believe in not taking any money from corporate donors, for any corporations, dark money PACs, and being transparent about where I'm fundraising from and being driven by the people. Because if I take money from someone, I know whether it's explicit or implicit, that you become beholden to those people.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I'm actually fundraising from the people and I'm driven and powered by the people.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. If elected, will you accept money from the Cleveland Leadership Fund? Why or why not?
I don't think they'll be offering me, and even if they did, respectfully, I will say no. I do not believe that city council leadership should have their own PAC that they are directing to help incumbents get elected. I think it works against the very ideals of democracy and participation that we want to foster. That honestly, right now, we need more of that if we're going to encourage voter turnout.
Yeah.
Cleveland has dismal voter turnout. It's part of the reason why Cuyahoga County has been having dismal turnout, and part of the reason why we're getting our butt kicked across the state on these statewide issues is because Cuyahoga County and Cleveland haven't been showing up like they should be. So at this point, when we need voters to actually trust the government, to turn out, to believe that they are voting for something that's worthwhile and important, we shouldn't be undermining that with PACs that are, the primary fundraisers of the Leadership Council Fund. Are many of these billionaires that get deals to refinance and to fix up their stadiums, renovate their stadiums. They're the ones funding it. It's a lot of landlords. K&D Management is a big, the Haslams, the Gilberts. These are all the people that we're working against that don't want to be held accountable. Why are we taking money from them?
Yeah.
It sets a bad precedent. It's a bad look. We see this in the law where judges and lawyers are forbidden from doing certain things, not because they might be influenced in reality, but even the perception of being influenced harms the judicial system.
Yeah.
Democracy is the same way. Even the perception of being bought is harmful and depresses voter turnout. So if we want to address these, we have to approach from it of, am I actually setting the example that I want to see others follow? And for me, not accepting Leadership Council Fund isn't basic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's completely understandable. Thank you for breaking that down also. How do you see vetting and managing private and public partnerships so that the residents of the city get value from such deals? And you kind of talked a little bit about that when we talked about money and politics, but how does that look governing? Like, because we know we live in a capitalistic world, right? That's just where we are. So we're going to need funding for things, but how will you vet? What's the impact here for the residents of this area? What's the impact here for Cleveland? And how do you manage that? And how do you maintain integrity while making these deals? What does that look like? What does that process look like for you?
Yeah, I think public-private partnerships are, for me, in my experience and what I've observed, has taught me to be very hesitant of these types of partnerships.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I'm completely opposed to them, but I do think they require a lot more scrutiny and a lot more oversight from the public portion of it, which we just generally haven't seen in the past, especially in Cleveland. To me, a big example of this is the Let's Save Cleveland partnership that's been going on. I don't know, some rough $200 million that's been put in a pot to fix up properties with lead in them. And we've seen very minimal action on this. Essentially, the ball has been dropped.
Yeah.
And the buck keeps being passed on who's actually responsible. To me, that's unacceptable. And I think that's a big reason why I have a problem with public-private partnerships, is because we lose transparency and we lose accountability. Yeah. These are two important things that we get when it's the public sector providing these resources. So if the city, for example, fails to pick up my trash on time, I know who I can yell at. I know who I can call, and who I can talk to, and who I can hold responsible, and hopefully eventually vote someone out if it's their fault. But with a private nonprofit, we lose all of that transparency and accountability. So for me, I'm hesitant about them. I'm open to exploring. Time and time again, we see this being presented as a viable solution without much oversight or transparency. So I would like to change that. And for me, it's when we enter them, can we actually have those regular insights? And a big portion of that also has to be, as someone who has a background in union organizing at nonprofits, I want to see them actually have guarantees that they're going to respect their workers' rights to unionize and to organize. Yeah. And we've been seeing a lot of these private partners not respecting that right. We just saw two physicians over at UH that were first put on administrative leave and then fired for organizing their workplace. I don't know how many public-private partnerships that UH has with the city of Cleveland, but to me, that's every one of those are leverage tools to make sure that they're actually doing the right thing and respecting their workers' right to organize. If anything, I'd like to shift that to the public arena so that the city itself can actually be providing these if we think it's important, why aren't we doing it? Why are we giving it to a third-party contractor or a third-party nonprofit? If you believe it's important, stand behind it, put resources towards it, and make sure you have the right people doing these things. Those aren't hard things to ask for me. But when we do it, I think having more regular, I personally am hesitant about more paperwork and having them provide more insights, but I'd rather much have that trust and relationship built that they're actually operating on these, and then having regular input from their stakeholders and from the people that they're actually serving. So we got to have more regular follow-up on that from council side, from whoever's funding them, to say, look, are the people who are actually supposed to be served being served by this public-private partnership?
Thank you so much. And to end, do you have any questions for me? And do you have anything that you want to share with Cleveland and your community?
I mean, I don't know how much time we have, Asia, but I know you're someone who's gone through this process, someone who knows a lot about these things. You've gotten an inside look at how the sausage is made. What are some of your
I don't like the sausage.
No, it's grimy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the council leadership fund is just so anti-democratic. I think it's like this boys club, that women are involved in too. It is very mean. I would say it's harmful to the goals that we should have, which is expanding leadership, right? Meaning expanding the type of leadership that we have elected, expanding community leadership, right? Which is like organizations or organizers who are, their goal is to increase the voter turnout, not to just keep people in because this is just who's in right now. And I think when I think about the Democratic Party, and I got to be honest here, it's not effective. It is not about democracy. It's the old guard, it's the respectability politics. And that shows when you have a council leadership fund that is very exclusive to those that, don't talk against me, those that don't stand up to me or advocate against the things that I'm pushing, right? So I don't agree with the council leadership fund. It's very harmful to our democracy here in Cleveland and the things that we need to be focused on. And the vetting and the managing private and public partnerships, it is a hard thing to do. It is something that I think that can evolve and change if we did it right. Right, just being honest, realistically, we live in capitalism, but how can we work within the confines of capitalism while serving at the same time? And I think that's something that leaders, we all need to figure out.
Let me ask you, after Better Cleveland for All announced their endorsed slate, we actually we got a quote from Council President Blaine Griffin on how council is already more progressive than what the challengers are trying to do. How do you feel about that? Council President Blaine Griffin claiming the title of a progressive?
Respectfully, no. That is, I mean, I think he's on the defense. Shout out to Blaine, right? Respectfully, no, I don't agree with that. We wouldn't have to form such a committee to ensure that progressive values are a part of Cleveland's democracy. And progressive values, unfortunately, have not existed. And I can go on and on where there's examples of where progressive values weren't uplifted in the local Democratic Party. You might as well have two parties, outside of the Republican Party, but in Cleveland, progressive Democrats and old guard. I do consider Blaine Griffin an old guard who is upset with organizers like myself and several others and many others rather, that's just like, you're going up against me. Listen to what we're saying. Participatory budgeting. I don't want to get too deep now, but participatory budgeting won in Ward 6. So there's a hunger, there is a need for inclusion and inclusive policy making that people are waking up and want to be involved in. And he's doing everything to stop it. He's also tried to stop public comment. That's problematic. That is not progressive. So I don't want to take up too much time, but we're going to have a part two. Tanmay, thank you so much for speaking with me. Congratulations on all the work that you're doing, the things that you're going to do. And thank you for being willing and able to serve. Running for city council or any,
just following on the
it
footsteps
is
and the
not,
work that have been done by people like you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much.
This is Street Story Media.